Let's talk about unfinished stories. What to do with them? So typically in an agile team, so we work on time boxes. So we at the beginning of the iteration, we say we'll finish so many user stories. Let's set the context here. So a particular team has committed to finishing 10 user stories at the beginning of the iteration. For whatever may be the reasons, they finished only 7 user stories of the 10. So that means they committed 10 user stories. They finished only 7 user stories at the end of the iteration. There could be multiple reasons and several reasons of them, and some of them may be genuine. There could be some genuine reasons why they did not finish the stories. So we'll not go into the details of why they were not able to complete. Let's talk about that at the end. So let's focus on what happens to the stories that were not completed. So as a product owner and the team, so we have three options there. For the product owner who has to accept the user stories, have three options in front of him or her. So option one is giving full credit. So that means the product owner will accept all the three user stories that are not finished, not so finished, and then give them full credit, asking the team to complete the remaining work. Maybe the testing or a little bit of validation is needed, whatever may be the case. So he or she will accept all the user stories, asking the team to finish the unfinished work. So that means the team gets full credit for the stories. And the product owner trusts the team that they'll be able to finish the remaining work. Let's say we are in the beginning of the day 10. So that means they have about a few more hours left in the iteration. So the team will finish the remaining stories. So the team will get full credit for the user stories that are not so finished. So that's option one. Option two is product owner looks at it and looks at the unfinished user stories, and there is no way that he or she could accept the user stories and ends up rejecting all the three user stories. In that case, team gets zero credit because maybe the user stories did not meet the acceptance criteria. The product owner is not in a position to accept them, so he or she rejects the user stories. Zero credit. Option two. Then there is an option three. There is a possibility of giving partial credit. So that means PO thinks that user story acceptance criteria mostly met, but some parts of the acceptance criteria is not met. So in that case, product owner has an option to split the user story into two parts. Split the user story into two parts, giving the credit to the completed part and not giving credit to the part that is not completed or not so completed or not completed to the product owner satisfaction. So that means the team is getting the partial credit. Now let's talk about the important fact. So what happens to the split user stories, or what happens to the stories that are not completed, right? So that are rejected basically. Here also we have three options. So option one is to continue. So the product owner takes a look at the three user stories that are not completed, and then he says, okay, let's move into the next iteration. So let's continue working on them because they are still a top priority for the product owner, and the work has to be completed. So move it into the next iteration. That's option one. Option two is delayed. Maybe the situation is that the user stories are still important, but at the same time, the product owner may have found some other better user stories, better ROI, important user stories he or she has already identified, and that have to be done. And he cannot wait on them. So these user stories that are not completed in this current iteration can wait. Maybe iteration two, iteration three, iteration four. For now, delay them to a later time. That's option two. And the option three is abandon them. So completely abandon them. That means we are not going to work on them anymore. So product owner may think, looking at the user stories that are not completed, part of the user stories that are not completed, and then the amount of time it takes to build the user story or amount of the money that he or she has to invest in completing that user story, or maybe there is no business case. The use case is so low that these scenarios which are not completed may rarely happen. So in which cases, the user stories may be completely abandoned, they'll go to the bottom of the backlog, and then they're never considered for completion. Now, what is the takeaway here? If the team consistently ending up in this situation, that means they are committing to Some user stories, they are able to finish only part of the user stories, and some of them are being rejected. If this happens once in a while, it's okay, but if it happens too often, there is other problem. So we need to investigate the root cause of why this is happening. Maybe the stories are accepted in the iteration without understanding them. Team doesn't understand completely, still they are accepted in the iteration. That could be a problem. So there could be another problem that the stories that they accepted into iteration did not meet the definition of ready. The working agreement they have with the product owner, they did not meet, but still they accepted it for some reason. Or maybe while implementing those user stories, team may have faced some impediments, some dependencies, unknown dependencies may have come in midway through the iteration. So that would have caused them not to complete the user stories. Or maybe it's possible that one of the teammates may have fallen sick, so it did not show up to the work. That's possible too. And then maybe another problem could be the product owner was not available to answer the questions the team has during the iteration, and then they could not finish the user story because they could not get the answers in time. In any case, if this is happening too frequently, the teams must consider imposing a stricter WIP limits on the team Kanban board. That means even though they think that they can do 10 user stories, they can finish only 6 or 7. So the WIP limit for the team has to be shortened. That's one of the reasons we will see going forward.